All right. Hey there, and welcome to this episode of our OCD Weekly FAQs or frequently asked questions. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Matt Cotty, and I'm the founder of Restored Minds and the creator of the AAA Response. And so this week, we've had several submissions, and I was kind of going through a lot of the submissions. If you're interested in submitting a question for this series, so just so we kind of pick from questions randomly, and I kind of get a feel for what is being submitted and try to answer a question that's going to serve the community the best. But a lot of our submissions had to do with sexual intrusive thoughts, especially things like sexual intrusive thoughts towards family members, sexual intrusive thoughts towards religious figures, stuff like that. So it's really going to be just this idea of how do I get rid of sexual intrusive thoughts? That's the question that we're going to be discussing, because that was the overall theme in many of the submissions. So the first thing that I want to go ahead and say is that these thoughts are way more common than people believe. And a lot of times I think there's so much accompanying guilt and shame about the intrusive thought itself that it leads to the isolation, the wanting to try to not ever talk about it or not ever present, but oftentimes the anxiety and stress is so high that it leads to things like depression, and feelings of depression, all that stuff as well. So I kind of want to really talk about, the first thing is really just acknowledging all the feelings that people have as a result of this experience. Okay. And that they're very, very normal. And so when it comes to how do I get rid of these sexual intrusive thoughts, let's go ahead and first define what that is. So when we're talking about psychological stress and we're talking about intrusive thoughts, one of the key indicators that we're looking for is the idea that the person identifies that these thoughts are what we would call ego dystonic, right? Not ego syntonic, meaning that they recognize that these thoughts are not an indication of who they know themselves to be, what they want, right? And they're usually the opposite of that, in fact. So someone who has these, like, what if I did something to a family member, one of my children, right? This idea of this, there's this predication of what if, right? So there's this, oftentimes it's like, what if that happened, right? Or there might be like an intrusive image. And the general reaction almost always is this feeling of disgust, repulsion, and then an aversion to the thought, and generally to the person that the thought might be directed to. And again, these thoughts are usually automatic as well, meaning the person's not consciously trying to have this thought. They're not consciously this is like the exact opposite of a fantasy, right? So this isn't like I'm having sexual fantasies about my loved one, or this and this, right? There's no, in my experience, there's no sexual arousal with these thoughts, right? And oftentimes what happens though is that the person, as a compulsion, will check if they're aroused and paradoxically create feelings in their genitalia, right? Male or female. And that causes a lot of stress as well. But the fact is, it's not an arousal from the it's kind of like if I told you to focus on the tip of your finger and really kind of like just really put all your focus on it, you're going to be able to feel a sensation there. Two different things. Okay. So when it comes to how do you get rid of the sexual intrusive thoughts, again, the problem is that trying to get rid of the thoughts is the problem. And what we actually want to do is to create more space between you and your thoughts first. And this is the idea of developing consciousness. And so, one of the best techniques that I know to do that, right, is, we have a 31-day meditation program. And so that's a great place to start, right? And to really kind of just kind of understanding you are the witness of the thought and you aren't the thought itself. So with intrusive thoughts, I think that's the first thing to really understand, is the idea of like, you aren't these thoughts. These thoughts aren't a reflection of you, right? They are something that you are aware of. You are the experiencer of. Now, again, these thoughts may be disturbing, but you are the awareness. You're still not them. You never have to listen to the thoughts. You don't ever have to, by any means, act upon any of these thoughts, but they are there. So then from there, what we need to do is, one of the big problems is because you're treating these thoughts as they're threatening, you oftentimes are engaging in safety behaviors without realizing it. These are things like, especially mental behaviors. So again, these are things like checking your body, right? These are the things like rumination, analyzing, mentally replaying, reassuring yourself, Googling to see, like what these mean, or, getting reassurance that they're just intrusive thoughts, thought blocking, thought suppression, thought replacement, right? All these list of things that you may be doing to try to combat the thoughts and the feelings. So the first thing that we need to do is we really need to make sure we're eliminating all the behaviors, right? And the best way I know how to do that is the AAA response. And that's so I have a guide down in the links beneath this episode, in the notes. And then I also have a link to the 2-day workshop as well. And you can also check out my book, From Stuck to Unstuck. That's going to be over at restoredminds.com, where you can grab and download a copy. Good places to get started there. And then if you really want really more in-depth help, we have our whole 12-week Taking Back Control program, and that's something you can apply for as well. So those are some places I would recommend to get started. And again, it really is about understanding what the actual problem is. The problem is not the intrusive thoughts, even though it seems like that's what it is. The problem is all the behaviors you're doing that are reinforcing the idea that these are dangerous, that's keeping this loop that you're stuck in going. And so most of the time when people are having these thoughts, they generally feel like they're caught in this loop. And if that's your experience, then that's a great indication that this is what you're really experiencing. Now, I want to preface all that with I want to follow up on all that when we're talking about like these kind of harmful, thoughts or stuff like this. It's like times where there really is, cause to go get direct intervention, right? And like potentially, seek immediate help is like, if these are thoughts you really want to act upon, right? And there's thoughts you really want to engage in and do, then that's a completely different situation, because those thoughts would be what we would call egosyntonic, right? And stuff where there needs to be a different intervention than the direction we would move in with something like OCD and anxiety. So I just want to kind of say that right now. And I know that might cause a little bit of stress, because then the mind's easily going to cause them, well, are these really those, right? And that doubt, the doubt is really what we're looking for, right? And there's been, I think, 2 times in my entire career where I've sat in front of someone talking about thoughts, and it was clear within about 5 minutes of talking that in those 2 situations, we weren't talking about OCD, right? And OCD and anxiety. In the 90, or however many, 98% or whatever of the other times, it's always been really clear right away whether we were talking about OCD or not. And it, generally speaking, was OCD and anxiety. And with the proper intervention, the person is usually able to create some space, start doing the correct intervention, and really break out of the loop. So all that being said, that's the path is not getting rid of the thoughts, it's getting rid of the behaviors. And the best way that I know to do that would be, again, the AAA response. And while there's obviously, and if you're really struggling, I would really recommend you seeking, getting guidance and advice from someone who really understands exposure and response prevention, OCD, and really getting assessed, if you have any question, by someone like that has that experience, because they'll be able to tell you very quickly, right? And the chances are, if you're watching this video and you align with what I'm saying, then that's what it is. But, again, if you want that extra confirmation, that's what I would do. So hope that helps. And with that said, wish you guys a great day. And if you are looking to submit any questions for future episodes, there's a little link down in the notes where you can do so, and just fill out the form, and we'll get it. So, and also lastly, if you would please support our channel by liking and subscribing, as well as leaving a comment and review on iTunes, I would much appreciate it, as it really helps the show. Thank you, guys. Hey there, hope you enjoyed that recent video. We really would appreciate your support real quick if you could like and subscribe to our channel. And if you're looking for help with